My name is Sullivan Hatcher. I'm 68 years old, and 3 months ago I learned that the boy I raised had been counting the days until I died. I want you to know that going in. Not because I'm bitter, though God knows I have the right to be, but because everything that follows only makes sense if you understand what kind of fool I'd been before that Tuesday afternoon in Phoenix. My daughter-in-law's voice on the phone had been honey for 6 weeks straight. Dad, you have to come out. Dad, the desert in November is something else. Dad, my husband misses you. He just won't say it. I should have heard the rehearsal in her tone. My late wife Mirabelle would have heard it inside of 10 seconds. But Mirabelle had been gone 14 months by then. And I'd grown soft in the silence of our house in Charleston. Soft and stupid and starving for the sound of someone calling me Dad. So I flew out. I packed a small leather suitcase, the one Mirabelle bought me for our trip to Vienna in 1998, and I took a red-eye into Sky Harbor with a paperback I never opened. The cab dropped me at a gated community in Paradise Valley around 4 in the afternoon. Stucco walls, palm trees lined up like soldiers, a fountain in front of the gatehouse that nobody seemed to be watching. The house was dark. That was the first thing. 2-story Spanish colonial, terracotta roof, the kind of place that costs more per month in property tax than most people pay in rent. My son Garrett and his wife Casimira had lived there for 11 years. I'd visited twice before, both times with Mirabelle. Both times when Mirabelle had whispered to me at night in the guest room that something about that woman wasn't sitting right with her. But the porch light was off. The mailbox by the curb was crammed so full, the little metal door wouldn't close. I rang the bell. I heard it echo through what sounded like an empty foyer. I called Garrett's cell. Voicemail. I called Casimira. Voicemail. I was standing there with my suitcase wheels sunk into a crack in the pavers when a man's voice came at me from the next yard over. "You're the father, aren't you?" It wasn't a question. I turned. He was a big man my age, maybe a year or two older, wearing a faded navy windbreaker and the kind of cargo shorts a man only wears if he stopped caring what anyone thinks. He had a hose in his hand. He'd been watering a small bed of cactus, but he'd let the water run into the gravel while he watched me. "I'm Sullivan Hatcher," I said. "Garrett's dad." I figured. He set the hose down and walked over. He had the bow-legged walk of a man who'd been on his feet his whole life. "I'm Donovan Breyer. I live here." He tilted his head toward his place. "I knew your wife. I felt the back of my neck go cold. You knew Mirabelle?" "Spoke to her on the phone twice. Year and a half ago, maybe. She tracked me down through a mutual friend at the church my late wife used to attend. Asked me to keep an eye on this house." He glanced past me at the dark windows. "Asked me to keep an eye on your boy." There was something in the way he said "your boy" that I didn't like. The way you might say that animal. "Mr. Breyer. What are you talking about?" He looked at me a long moment. Cop's eyes. I'd worked with enough of them over the years to know. He was measuring me, deciding what I could handle. "Mr. Hatcher, I'm going to do you a kindness. Get back in a cab. Go to a hotel. Better yet, go back to the airport and fly home tonight. Whatever you came here for, it ain't what you think." I gripped the handle of the suitcase. "That's my son in there." "Your son hasn't slept in that house in 9 days," he said. "His wife's been packing in the middle of the night. There've been 3 different men coming and going at hours that don't make sense, and one of them ain't a man you want to meet. They've been telling everyone on this street that their rich daddy from South Carolina was finally coming to bail them out." The word "rich" did something funny in my chest. "I don't have any idea what you're talking about," I said. "Sir." His voice dropped. "They are in trouble with people who hurt other people for a living. And they spent the last 2 months bragging that you were the solution. Now I don't know what they told you, but you weren't invited here to visit. You were invited here to be cleaned out." A car turned into the cul-de-sac. Headlights swept across us. Donovan stepped back from me a half step. Casual. The way a man does when he doesn't want to be seen talking. "Spare keys where it's always been," he said quietly. "Your wife told me. Loose paver behind the rosemary bush by the side gate. You decide you want to talk after they've gone to bed. My porch light'll be on." He walked back to his hose. I stood there in the orange Phoenix dusk with my suitcase, and the car coming up the driveway was a black Range Rover I knew for a fact my son could not afford. Garrett climbed out of the driver's seat looking like a man who'd just thrown up in a parking lot somewhere. Casimira got out the other side in a cream-colored dress and heels that didn't belong on any errand she could plausibly have been running, and the smile she put on for me when she saw me was the brightest, falsest thing I have ever seen in my life. "Daddy," she called, clicking across the pavers with both arms out. "Oh my gosh, you're early. We were just at the grocery." There were no grocery bags in her hands, none in the car either. I could see straight into the back seat through the open door. "Long flight," I said. I let her hug me. She felt like a coat hanger wrapped in expensive perfume. I was starting to wonder. "Traffic was insane," Garrett mumbled. He still hadn't looked at me. He was checking his phone with both thumbs, his face the color of cold oatmeal. "Sorry, Dad. Come in. Come in." I let them lead me inside, and I noticed 3 things in the first 30 seconds. The house smelled stale, like nobody had opened a window in a month. The expensive sectional in the living room had a wine stain the size of a dinner plate on the cushion nearest the door, and the entryway table where a person might toss their keys had a stack of mail on it that someone had clearly just swept off the floor in a hurry. Red envelopes. Final notice. Final notice. Final notice. Pre-foreclosure. Action required. Casimira was already in the kitchen, pulling down a glass for water, talking non-stop in that high, bright voice. About the weather. About my flight. About a hike we should do at South Mountain. Though she pronounced it like she'd never been on a trail in her life, Garrett stood by the window with his back to me, thumbs going on his phone, sweating through the collar of his shirt. I sat down on the stained cushion. I let my back hunch a little. I let myself look like a tired old man whose knees hurt from the plane. "Honey," I said, "where are the lights? Is everything all right?" "Oh, it's just the bulbs," Casimira called brightly. "We've been meaning to get to it. You know how busy life gets." I nodded. I sipped the lukewarm water. I let my gaze drift to the mail on the table. She saw me see it. She crossed the room fast, scooped the whole stack up in her arms, and laughed a small, high laugh. "Don't even look at that. Junk. You wouldn't believe how much junk we get. Final notice in red letters is rarely junk, honey." She froze for half a second, then the smile came back. "Oh, Dad, you're so funny. It's a billing dispute with the gardener. You know how it is." Garrett finally turned around. He looked at me with the eyes of a child who's broken something expensive and hasn't decided whether to lie or cry. "Dad," he said, "we need to talk." Casimira sat down on the coffee table directly in front of me. She put her hand on my knee. Her hand was cold. "We're so glad you're here, Daddy. Truly. And I know this is so soon, but life moves fast, and we have this opportunity. And we needed family." Here it came. "What kind of opportunity?" I said. She and Garrett glanced at each other. He nodded at her like a man giving a witness permission to testify. "It's a development project," she said. "Mixed use, downtown, our friend's a partner, ground floor stake in something that's going to triple in 18 months. We've put everything we have into it, and we're just a little short on the buy-in window. The window closes Friday." "How short?" I said. 60,000, she said. Quick, like ripping a bandage. "Just a bridge. We'd have it back to you with 12% in 6 months. You'd never see that on a CD." I let my mouth fall open a little. I did the trembly old man hand on the chest. I'd never done it in my life, and here I was, 2 takes in, doing it like I'd studied. "Sweetheart," I said. 60. That's most of what I have. Since Mirabelle, I've been living on what comes in monthly. The pension, Social Security, I don't have that kind of money lying loose." I watched her face. It happened in the muscles around her eyes first. The warmth blinked off like somebody had thrown a switch. Underneath it was a flat metallic anger, and just for a second she let me see it, then the smile came back on. Tighter this time. "Dad," Garrett said. His voice cracked. "Please, we're really in a spot." "I need to think about it," I said. I made a little wince and pressed my hand against my lower back. I'm so tired, I'd like to lie down." Casimira opened her mouth like she was going to push. Then she closed it. "Of course, Daddy. You rest. We'll talk over breakfast. The window closes Friday. Just please, think about how much you love your son." I let Garrett carry my suitcase up the stairs. The guest room had a thin layer of dust on the dresser and a coffee mug on the nightstand with a dried ring of something brown at the bottom. They hadn't expected me to actually stay. They'd expected me to write a check and go to a hotel. I lay on top of the covers in my clothes for 2 hours. I listened to them downstairs, voices low and sharp, his rising in panic, hers cutting it back down. Around 11:30, their bedroom door closed too hard and the house went quiet. I waited another 40 minutes. Then I picked up my shoes, went down the stairs in my socks, slipped out the back door into the dry desert night, and walked across 2 strips of gravel to Donovan Breyer's porch. He opened the door before I knocked. His living room was the opposite of theirs. Spare, clean, books on the shelves arranged by subject, a framed photograph of a woman with a kind face and gray hair on the mantel, and a smaller frame next to it with a man in dress blues taking an oath. "Sit down," he said. "I made coffee an hour ago. It's still hot." I sat. He brought me a heavy ceramic mug. "How bad?" I said. 240,000, give or take," he said. "That's what I overheard her screaming into her phone in the backyard last Saturday. That's owed to a man called Yusuf Carlo. He's not in any phone book. He's the kind of money that fronts other money. The 60,000 they're hitting you up for, that's this week's interest, more or less. They're not going to invest it in anything. They're going to hand it to him and buy themselves another 9 days." I stared into the coffee. "And the house," I said. He nodded slowly. "That's the other thing. About a month ago, a for sale by owner sign went up out front for 2 hours. Then it came down. I called my niece. She works at the county recorder's office. There's a quitclaim deed sitting in the file from 6 weeks ago, transferring ownership from the trust into your son's individual name. Your signature's on it. Notary stamp from a woman whose registration expired in 2019. I set the mug down very carefully on the coaster. "How did you know about the trust?" He looked at me with something between sadness and pride. "Mirabelle told me. Last call we had, 4 months before she passed. She said, 'Donovan, my husband has a blind spot the size of Texas where that boy is concerned.' She said, 'When I'm gone, that woman is going to come for him with both hands.' She said, 'You're a retired detective, please. Just keep your eyes open.'" I closed mine. I could see Mirabelle in our bedroom in Charleston, in the chair by the window where she did her reading, looking at me over the top of her glasses with that patient, sad expression that meant I was about to be told the truth whether I was ready to hear it or not. She'd told me 100 times that Garrett had married a knife. I told her she was being unfair, that Casimira just took some warming up to. I told my dying wife she was being unfair. "Mr. Breyer," I said, "I need to make a phone call, and then I'm gonna need your help with something." I stepped out onto his back patio and called Lorraine Maddox. Lorraine had been my attorney for 31 years. She'd handled the sale of my company in 2016, the estate planning after Mirabelle's diagnosis, every important piece of paper I'd signed since the Reagan administration. It was past 1 in the morning her time. She picked up on the second ring. "Sully, tell me you're not in a hospital. I'm in Phoenix." "Lorraine, listen to me. There's a quitclaim deed on file in Maricopa County dated 6 weeks ago, transferring the Paradise Valley house out of the Hatcher family trust into Garrett's name alone. My signature's on it. I didn't sign it." 3 full seconds of silence. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "All right. Her voice changed. It went into the register I'd only heard it use a handful of times in 3 decades. I'm hanging up and waking up 2 people. You don't talk to Garrett or the wife about money tomorrow? You don't sign anything. You play the doddering old fool, and you get yourself somewhere safe by tomorrow night. Are you somewhere safe right now? I'm at the neighbor's. He was a detective. Of course he was. Mirabelle. She let out a small, unhappy laugh. She set this up, didn't she? I think she did. I'll call you at 7 your time. Don't answer in front of them. I went back inside. Donovan was sitting in his recliner with his hands folded. My lawyer's on it, I said. I need to go back over there tonight so they don't get suspicious. But tomorrow, I'm going to need you to make a phone call when I tell you to. Just one. To 911. You're going to tell them you heard a violent argument next door, that there's an elderly man inside and you think he's been hurt. He looked at me a long moment. Then he nodded. Mirabelle picked the right neighbor to call, he said. She picked the right husband, too. I just took a long time to remember it. I slept maybe 2 hours back in that dusty guest bed, and at 6:30 I was downstairs in the kitchen pretending to fumble with the coffee maker. Casimira came down at 7 in a yellow sundress, full makeup, smelling like a department store. She made pancakes she'd never made in her life and called me Daddy 14 times in 20 minutes. Garrett sat at the table behind a section of the newspaper and did not look at me once. At 7:03, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I excused myself to the powder room. They forged on the deed and they listed the house yesterday, Lorraine said. Cash buyer, all cash offer accepted last night, scheduled to close in 72 hours for $1.9 million. Silly, they're trying to steal almost $2 million from you. I gripped the edge of the sink. Stop the sale, quietly. Already done. Title company's frozen pending a fraud investigation. The buyer's been informed there's a defect in the chain of title. As of an hour ago, that house is unsellable to anyone but you, the actual owner. And the deed. Police reports being filed in Maricopa County this morning. Forgery is a felony in Arizona. So is conspiracy to commit grand theft over $100,000. Lorraine. I need a meeting. Tomorrow morning. Your office. Get me on the first flight. I want my son and his wife in the room. I want their lender in the room. And I want every law enforcement agency that has jurisdiction sitting in the lobby. She didn't speak for a moment. Sully. You sure about this? We can do it cleaner. We can have the police pick them up tonight, and you never have to see them again. I owe Mirabelle this, I said. She tried to tell me for 11 years. I'm going to look that woman in the eye and let her wash the floor go out from under her. And I'm going to look at my son and tell him what kind of man he turned out to be. All right. 11 a.m. tomorrow, my office in Charleston. I'll handle the rest. I came out of the bathroom and sat back down at the table. Casimira put a plate of blueberry pancakes in front of me with a flourish. Have you thought about what we discussed, Dad? I set down my fork. I let my hand shake just a little. Honey, $60,000 is a lot, but Garrett's my son. Tell me about this investment in person. With your guy. With the partner. I want to meet him before I write that kind of check. Her eyes lit up. Pure, undisguised greed. She'd take any opening I gave her. He's actually flying through Charleston tomorrow. Isn't that perfect? What if we all flew back together? Met him at your lawyer's office, made it official. My lawyer's office, I said slowly. I suppose we could do it there. Lorraine handles all my paperwork. Perfect, she said. She squeezed Garrett's shoulder. He looked like he was about to throw up the pancake he hadn't eaten. We were on a noon flight. Casimira sat between Garrett and me, talking the whole way about how this was the start of something for our family. Garrett stared out the window the entire flight. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, and I thought about Mirabelle in the hospice bed, holding my hand saying, "Don't be too hard on him when I'm gone. But don't be too soft either. He needs to feel a wall sometime, The next morning at 11 a.m., the four of us, Garrett, Casimira, the so-called partner who turned out to be a man in a $4,000 suit named Yusuf Carlo, and me, sat down at the long walnut conference table in Lorraine Maddox's office on Broad Street in Charleston. Lorraine sat at the head of the table in a charcoal suit with her hair pulled back. She didn't smile. She slid a single folder across to me. I opened it and made a small, confused frown. "What is this, Lorraine?" "That's the deed transferring the Paradise Valley property out of the Hatcher Family Trust into your son's name, dated September 22nd of this year." I looked at it. I looked up at Garrett. His face had gone gray. "I never signed this," I said quietly. Casimira's smile didn't move, but her hands disappeared under the table. "Dad, of course you did. Don't you remember? You were going through some things after, Mom. You might have just forgotten." "Mrs. Hatcher," Lorraine said. Her voice was very flat. "The notary listed on this document is named Penelope Trask. Miss Trask's notary commission expired in November of 2019. Miss Trask herself passed away in March of 2021. So unless Mr. Hatcher signed this document and had it notarized by the deceased woman, what we are looking at is a forged legal instrument used to transfer real property worth approximately $2 million. Yusuf Carlo stood up. "I think there's been some misunderstanding. I'll just step out." "Sit down, Mr. Carlo," Lorraine said, "or the gentleman waiting in the hallway will sit you down. Detective Pruitt of the Charleston Police Department is here, along with 2 agents from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. They became very interested when our investigator pulled your interest rates and your client list. You're welcome to leave. They'll just be following you to the parking lot." He sat. Casimira's mouth had opened. She looked at Garrett. Garrett was looking at his hands. "Mom," I said, and it came out softer than I meant it to. "She knew. Did you know that? She knew about you 11 years ago. She told me on the day you came to Sunday dinner the first time. She said, 'That girl is looking past our son.' She set up the trust the way she did because she didn't trust you with so much as a houseplant. You didn't get the house. You never had the house. It was never his to give and never yours to take." Casimira's lower lip started to tremble. The tear that came out of her left eye was a real tear, and it was made of pure rage. "You senile old man," she hissed. "After everything I did for him." "What you did," I said, "was hollow him out and prop him up like a coat rack." I turned to Garrett. He still wouldn't look at me. "Son, look at me." He looked. What I saw in his face wasn't a stranger. I'd known that face since the day I held him in the hospital. The same eyes as when he was 8 and broke a lamp and tried to blame the dog. The same downturned mouth as when he was 16 and wrecked the car. He was a 41-year-old man with the soul of a child who had never once in his life been told no. That, I realized, was on me. Not all of it, but enough of it. "Dad," he whispered. "I'm sorry. It was her. It was all her. Don't," I said. "Don't do that. Be a man for 30 seconds. You signed it, or you watched her sign it. Either way, you knew." He started to cry. "Your mother begged me on her deathbed," I said. "She said, 'Please don't let him sell our home over my body.' I told her no one would ever do that. I made her a promise, son, and you tried to make a liar out of me to a dying woman." The door opened. Detective Pruitt was a tall black man in his 50s with a tired, patient face. He was carrying handcuffs. "Mr. Garrett Hatcher, Mrs. Casimira Hatcher." "Bikatikam, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit grand theft, forgery of a public record, and elder financial exploitation." Casimira screamed. "I will spare you the words." They were not the kind of words that a daughter-in-law should ever say to her husband's father, and they confirmed every single thing my wife had ever tried to tell me. Garrett didn't fight. He stood up. He held out his wrists. The detective cuffed him gently. The way you do with a man who isn't going to give you trouble. As they led him past me, he stopped. He looked at me. His face was wet. Dad, please. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him until he looked away first. The two FBI agents walked Yusef Carlo out a different door. When the room was empty, I sat down. Lorraine sat down across from me. She poured me a glass of water from the pitcher. "You all right?" she said. "No," I said, "but I will be." We sold to Paradise Valley House, the real way this time, 3 months later, 1.85. The proceeds went into a foundation I named after my wife, the Mirabelle Hatcher Fund. It pays for elder law attorneys to represent older folks whose children are trying to take what isn't theirs. Donovan Breyer sits on the board. So does Lorraine. Garrett took a plea. 4 years. Casimira wouldn't take the deal. She got 11. About a month into his sentence, I got a letter from him. I held it for 2 days. I almost opened it. I sat on the porch in Charleston, in the chair where Mirabelle used to read, and I held that envelope, and I thought about every birthday I'd put a check inside an envelope just like it. I went to the fireplace. I dropped it in. He's not my son anymore. He's the consequence of every time I let him off the hook. I'll grieve him the rest of my life. But I won't lie to him again about who he is, the way I lied to myself for 41 years. I sit on the porch most evenings now. The marsh grass behind the house turns gold in the late light. I'm 68 years old, and for the first time since Mirabelle died, I sleep through the night. She was right about everything. She was right about everything. She was right about him. She was right about the woman. She was right that I was blind, and she was right that the only way I would ever see was if it cost me everything. I just wish I'd told her, before she went, that I knew she was right. That would have been the kindest thing I ever did. I do it now, every night, out loud, to the empty chair by the window. You were right, Mira. You were right about all of it. And somewhere, I have to believe she finally hears me. I sit on his porch most nights now, and I think about how long it takes a man to learn the simplest thing. Mirabelle saw Casimira clearly the first Sunday that woman set foot in our house. I had 11 years to listen to my wife, and I spent every one of those years explaining to her why she was being unfair. That was not love for my son. That was vanity dressed up as love. I wanted to believe I had raised a strong man, so I refused to see the weak one standing in front of me. And because I refused to see him, Garrett never had to become anything different. Every time I made an excuse for him, I was pouring concrete around his ankles. There is a hard truth in this. The people who hurt us the most are almost always the people we taught how to do it. I taught my son that there were no real consequences in his world because his father would always smooth the road. I taught him that comfort was a birthright. And then I was shocked, when a woman like Casimira saw him from across a room and recognized exactly the kind of man she could use. She did not create him. I did. She just found him. What saved me in the end was not cleverness. It was that one neighbor, Donovan, who answered the call of a dying woman he barely knew and stayed at his post for over a year without anyone thanking him. It was Mirabelle, who from her hospice bed quietly built the trapdoor I would later need to walk across to safety. It was Lorraine, who picked up the phone at 1 a.m. and went to work without asking me to explain myself. None of those people owed me a single thing. They showed up because they had built lives of decency long before I ever needed them, and decency is a savings account that pays out exactly when you cannot afford to lose. So if you are sitting where I was sitting, with a son or a daughter who has been calling more than usual and asking strange questions about your finances, I am asking you to stop being kind to yourself about what you already know. Your gut is not paranoia. Your gut is the only honest thing left in the room. Listen to it, and if you have a partner who has been trying to tell you something for years, sit down tonight and apologize to them, even if they are gone. Even if you have to do it to an empty chair, there is a strength in admitting you were wrong that no amount of being right will ever give you. I lost a son. I will not pretend otherwise, but I gained back a wife. I had stopped truly hearing somewhere around our 30th year together. Every evening when I say her name out loud to that empty chair, I feel her closer than I felt her on most of the days she was alive in our house. And that is the strange, terrible gift inside all of this. The wall I should have hit 40 years ago finally came up to meet me, and I am still standing on the other side of it.